Hormones are your body's like chemical messengers. They think of them like as text messages being sent from one organ to another. You know, they really help to regulate everything: your sleep, your metabolism, your mood. Your reproductive cycles obviously are really important based on your hormones. But if you don't fix cortisol and insulin, you're never going to fix the other ones. You're never going to fix them. Welcome everybody to this week's edition of the Lindsey Show. We're flipping the script and I am going to get interviewed instead of being the interviewer. It's going to be really fun. And my interviewer today is Tammy, my podcast producer, who I love and adore. And so we are going to talk all about hormones. So let's get into it.
Yes. Okay. So first up, let's just talk about hormones just generally. And why are they so important for our health? Like, we hear a lot about them in the media, especially, you know, with all the talk about perimenopause and all the things. So what's the deal with hormones?
Yeah, so hormones are your body's like chemical messengers. They think of them like as text messages being sent from one organ to another. You know, they really help to regulate everything: your sleep, your metabolism, your mood. Your reproductive cycles obviously are really important based on your hormones, and then your energy, and then also how you respond to stress. And so without your hormones working in balance, it's like you're trying to like run a symphony, but all your orchestra instruments are like out of tune. So nothing sounds right, nothing feels right. And so these signals are really important for our body regulation and how they kind of, how systems talk to one another.
Right. That's so important. Like, yeah, it's just, it's crazy how it all works together. Now, I mentioned the media before, and there's so much talk about perimenopause and all that. And I did want to talk about that because that's where I am.
Yeah.
Why does midlife feel like such the hormonal storm for those in that area?
Well, I think probably because most of the people are unhealthy to begin with, you know what I mean? And so it feels like a hormonal storm, but the hormonal storm was already happening. It's just, it wasn't so blatantly out there. But perimenopause, you know, I think that it also culturally, women are not honored for the transition at menopause as they are in that, like, going into their period and their pregnancy ages. This is not an area like in other cultures where women are really highly valued and like menopause is just like an amazing thing. But here's the thing too, menopause in some countries where people eat better, have better sleep patterns, or just healthier in general, menopause is not a thing like it is in the United States. And I also think that there's been a little bit of kind of glamorization of the like problem of perimenopause. And so like what in some women is like a real problem is just like an Instagram post for someone else. And so the hormonal storm was already going on, right? It's what's happened is, you know, your cortisol was already elevated, your insulin was already elevated, and now all of your estrogen and your progesterone and your testosterone are just going wacky. But it's because everything was already messed up to begin with, you know? And so it's because we're an unhealthy culture that we have these like major problems at perimenopause. And so a lot of it is just you reach that space and your body starts screaming at you, but it's been screaming for a while. It's just you couldn't hear it yet. With hormones is that they're all out of balance already. And so if they're all out of balance already, what is going on in our bodies. We have these signs of imbalance for years. I mean, people have chronic fatigue and weight gain and mood swings, brain fog. All of these things are already happening. It's just, it gets way louder in perimenopause. And so I think that is probably a big piece of it. Perimenopause is really tough on women. It's really tough.
And I also would say that some of the education that healthcare providers, the education they're providing to their patients, they're not, I know for me personally, I was told I just need to go on antidepressants. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. I don't really think that's what I'm asking here for,
Yeah.
So I think that's part of the problem as well, is that women are not, we don't get a handbook that says, hey, welcome to perimenopause. Here you go.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. We women definitely don't, just like they don't get a hey, here's, I guess there are pregnancy books and things like that out there. But I also think that, a lot of the crazy symptoms, a lot of the reason I think that they're crazy is because we have been told as a culture, you're just crazy because you're going, it's like you're going through menopause and your hormones are going like bananas and you don't know exactly what's going on in your body. And you're told, oh, that's just normal. And it's like, well, no, why don't we actually measure our hormones and kind of see where we are? Why don't we, look at diet, exercise, sleep, all of those things. And then really just the value and honor of going through the process.
Right, exactly. So you mentioned sleep and diet, and I know stress is also a big thing. Can you talk a little bit about that? About the role that lifestyle actually plays within some of these things?
Well, I mean, lifestyle is everything. You know what I mean? There are only a few root causes of disease, and they're not sleeping well, and what you eat and how you move. And we really just don't take a look at what is causing everything from the get-go. My nutrition, my dietary balance, my chronic stress, my sleep, my exercise and physical activity. Other things you need to look at are environmental exposures. Are really important. People are not always looking at what is in their cupboards and in their cleaning materials. And we really want to look at what all the functional medicine grounds are, so that we can figure out what there is. And so if it's not sleep, exercise, nutrition, stress, relationships, trauma, microorganisms or environmental pollutants, and then there's the genetics as well that are predisposing us. There's the genetic predisposition, but then there's those antecedents, triggers, and mediators, so the antecedents are the things that happened to you when you were a child, all that crap. But then there's a trigger of everything was fine until. And then the mediators is what has made things better and worse over the years. In functional medicine, we talk about stop trying to mop the water off the floor and turn off the faucet, right? So making that decision of how do we do the simplest thing instead of doing the most complicated thing, trying to fix the problem. So that is really in functional medicine where we start as far as looking at what is actually causing this problem.
Right, exactly. Now, when you look out there and there's so much conflicting information, number one, and there's so many different things that you hear about, like everybody needs to go on HRT or hormone replacement therapy or this. Can you talk about some of those things? Some of those myths that, or some of those things that we hear about that are probably not actually true?
Man, there's so many hormone myths out there, and so we have to work, to sort out the conflicting information, because in some ways perimenopause has been like glamorized, and in other ways it has been villainized, and I think the same thing is true for any kind of problems around pregnancy, etc. And so, but when it comes to hormones, like a lot of people think you're never going to have a hormone problem until you're in menopause. Well, that's just absolutely not true. I mean, people can have hormone problems throughout their entire lives. You think about people that have hypothyroidism from the very beginning of their life. So you have to take a look at, okay, where are they in their journey in this hormone issue? Because hormone imbalances can happen all the time. Another big myth is that hormone replacement's the only solution, So, hormone replacement can be a piece of the puzzle. And really, I think that sleep just gets so undervalued. And stress management is equally powerful. But and sometimes it's really just what you need, because another thing in functional medicine that's super cool is looking at how hormones relate to each other. And so, up under all of your problems is a cortisol problem or an insulin problem. One of those is down there. But everybody's looking at thyroid and testosterone and estrogen and progesterone and luteinizing hormone and this, that, and the other. But if you don't fix cortisol and insulin, you're never going to fix the other ones. You're never going to fix them. They're always going to be in bad shape. And so that is very important to look at, is that, sometimes we're so focused on what's up here when we really need to be looking down here.
So if someone's out there thinking, wow, this sounds like me, all these things you're talking about, this is me, what would you recommend to them?
If you think this sounds like you, my best advice is to begin by just being aware. Be aware. Start tracking your symptoms. So your sleep, your energy, your mood, your cycle changes. Get a basic lab panel. It's amazing how many people do start taking medications before they've ever even tested their labs. And that makes no sense at all. And so you want to check your thyroid, check your cortisol, look at your insulin, where are your sex hormones. Really knowing where are you hormone-wise is really important before you start a supplementation program, etc. And then you also just want to work with somebody who understands this and knows what they're doing.
Exactly. Then they can help guide you to whatever that next step is. Dealing with the insulin, maybe getting the cortisol under control. What other things are popping up in those labs that you're getting? Maybe there's something that we need to address over here first, rather than jump into all the usual things. So balancing our hormones is not just about avoiding hot flashes or even PMS. It's much more than that, right?
Right. Oh, yeah. So, when your hormones are doing well, you're going to be in a better mood. And who doesn't want that? That sounds great to me. That alone is enough. Your energy stays really stable. Your sleep is better. Your metabolism works with you, not against you. Hormone balance, especially cortisol and insulin, I can't say that enough. Hormone balance doesn't just help you survive. They help you really thrive.
I can attest to that, because that's where I'm at now. they're all balanced, and I can get so much more done.
Mm-hmm.
The brain works like it's supposed to. I'm getting the certain amount of sleep. There's certain medications that I'm taking to help with balancing all those things and keeping that insulin level down.
Yeah.
And it's just been like night and day. It literally like night and day. So highly recommend it. Now you have a new course.
Yeah.
And so let's talk a little bit about Hormone Harmony. Can you tell everybody what that's about?
Yeah. So this is going to be a huge expansion of everything that we just talked about and more. We go through all the key hormones: oxytocin, cortisol, insulin, thyroid hormone, estrogen, testosterone. We really dig in, and it's interesting, like why this came up, because I'm not typically a hormone kind of pharmacist, but I started using a nasal spray, an oxytocin nasal spray. And when I talked about it online, people really just kind of went crazy and loved it and wanted to know so much more. And so this can help you understand how your hormones connect to your mood, your metabolism, your longevity. But we're not just going to talk about what's wrong. We're going to talk about how we fix it. We're going to talk about science, about functional medicine, and everyday lifestyle tools. And so this is about how do we create empowerment and avoid confusion as it comes to healing our hormones. We have a free ebook, gives you a sneak peek into the world of all of this hormone healing. You'll find a breakdown of the most important hormones, signs of imbalance, and simple steps that you can take to feel better. So this is like your starter guide. This is your roadmap that's going to get you going. That's going to help start making sense of what's going on in your body. And then if you want to go deeper into it, there's a course for you there as well. And so just, I think realizing that hormones don't have to be a mystery. They're not something you're destined to battle for forever. With the right tools, you can restore balance and feel like yourself again. And so check out the link in the show notes to grab your free ebook. Let's start your journey together towards your hormone harmony.
So, Lindsey, thank you so much for doing this, talking about hormones, sharing all the knowledge. And this was so much fun. And I think we should do more of these, don't you think?
I totally think so. And you know what I think we should do is get some questions from our listeners. So thanks for listening, everybody, to this week's edition of the Lindsey Elmore Show. Please share it with a friend, like it on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts, and we will see you next week.